So why are we going to trial? We are going to trial simply because an ignorant mob screamed loud enough about a justified use of force, and weak leaders like District Attorney Summer Stephan bowed to the mob's demands.
You have to ask yourself. You have to ask yourself why. Why is a DA like Summer Stephan participating in this perverted form of justice where she's going after a police officer for doing his job? Is it to appease a feeble-minded group of absolute morons who hear one thing from the media and then they go insane and they start throwing bricks and burning down cities and attacking police officers because they perceive that there's some sort of racial injustice simply because a white police officer had to deal with a black suspect? That's what we're doing. Instead of mobilizing your police force and mobilizing the National Guard, if you need to handle rioters and looters in your city, you're going to prosecute a good man, a good police officer who does good in his community, who upholds the Constitution, who protects and serves, and you're going to attend. So the maximum sentence, I believe, for falsifying a police report is like 3 years. What absolute garbage. So a couple of months ago, I had Christina Dages on my podcast to talk about her husband, former officer Matthew Dages, and the incident he was involved in back in May of 2020, also involving the suspect, Amaurie Johnson. And I want to emphasize suspect because he's been labeled as the victim in this case by a corrupt district attorney, Summer Stephan from San Diego County. And some of you probably remember that video, have probably seen the footage of Officer Dages having to restrain Amaurie Johnson as he became agitated and got in Officer Dages' face and actually hit him when Officer Dages was attempting to investigate a possible violation. The Officer Dages' actions during that contact with Johnson were 100% justified. Officer Dages believed that a crime was being committed and that Johnson was committing that crime. He went to investigate. He told Johnson that he wasn't free to leave. Johnson hit him, slapped his hand away as he tried to detain him. And then you'll see in the footage that Johnson he keeps standing up after being told to remain seated. He gets in Officer Dages' face. He's waving his hands around. He's balling up his fist. He's taking a bladed stance. All these are very threatening movements to a police officer. Okay, when you're investigating a potential violation. But this incident came on the heels of the George Floyd incident. Now, just like with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the DA in this case is prosecuting a well-known, well-respected, decorated police officer for the sake of acquiescing to a woke mob. Okay, the DA has bought into this narrative, this social justice, racial inequality narrative being pushed by the left, and she's prosecuting this officer and threatening his freedom and his livelihood for the sake of this perversion of this perverted form of woke social justice. Now, this case hasn't gotten the media attention that the Rittenhouse case has gotten, but its outcome is every bit as important. We're going to watch Christina's latest video regarding this incident.
As many of you know, we are heading to trial at the end of this month for a felony count of falsifying a police report. So I wanted to make this video to shed some light on how outrageous and unfounded this criminal case is against my husband, Matthew Dages. A majority of you are squarely in our corner and you understand why this case is BS. But for others, you may be thinking, well, if it's going to trial, there's got to be something there. So I wanted to take the opportunity.
There's nothing there. There's just so you're all aware, just so you know beforehand, there's nothing there. Just like with the Kyle Rittenhouse case and how clear-cut it is with his right to self-defense and the necessity for him to defend himself during that incident, there is nothing here for which Matthew Dages should be prosecuted.
Opportunity to hit that head on and probably blow some minds in the process. So I'm going to read some of my notes from the preliminary hearing. I sat through both days of the hearing. I listened to every.
By the way, I just want to point out, so you won't see Officer Dages on any videos on social media because he's essentially keeping his head down at this point because he has to. if he were to take to social media to try and plead his case and to talk about the injustice that he's experiencing, that would just give his department and the city of La Mesa and the district attorney more of a reason to try and hamstring him and cut him off at the knee. So Christina is taking this thing by the horns. She's been absolutely solid throughout this. She's doing videos. She's created fundraising campaigns. She's creating awareness, and not only for her husband, but she understands the fight that is important, that we take part in this war on police. Okay, we have to fight this battle. We do. That's all there is to it. Our police are under attack by district attorneys like Summer Stephan, who have sold their soul to the woke left and are prosecuting officers while at the same time being very lenient with criminals like Amaurie Johnson. After the incident with Officer Dages, Amaurie Johnson led San Diego PD on a high-speed vehicle pursuit, caused a ton of private and public property damage, and Summer Stephan refused to prosecute him because he's the victim, quote unquote, in this case against Officer Dages and her star witness. So she's not prosecuting actual criminals. She's letting them go for the sake of maintaining a varnished case against Officer Dages. Now, Christina has been a rock star in her defense of her husband. And like I said, these folks have been through hell with this case and trying to clear Matthew Dages' name.
Every word of the testimonies, the district attorney's office is claiming, and I quote, Officer Dages put in there observations that are not supported by facts regarding Mr. Johnson balling up fists and taking some type of bladed stance. Those are the allegations that District Attorney Summer Stephan's office is trying to send Matthew to prison over. Now, we have some of the biggest names in law enforcement backing our case. So I wanted you all to hear it from these officers directly, what they see when they watch the video of Matthew Dages' incident.
This is an aggressive stance.
This is the Officer Tatum
towards a police officer, which this officer wrote in his case report that he took a bladed stance, an aggressive stance. Here's a still shot of a bladed aggressive stance with a man literally touching noses with this police officer.
There is reasonable expectation from Officer Dages here that he is about to be battered, that there is an imminent threat that this guy is going to continue to aggress him with physical assault, because he was sitting and now he's been told he's being detained and he can't go anywhere. And he stands up in an aggressive, bladed posture against the officer.
Hey, you real big. Bro, we live here. Dude, just leave him alone, bro.
Look at him. Look at him balling his fists up, doing this. Here's another video, still shot, of the man standing in the officer's face with his hands balled up. This is what they teach officers to do, is put your hands here just in case you got to swing on somebody. Your hands ain't too low. His hands are right here. He in the officer's face in a confrontational manner. All of the evidence you need to see is right here. I read it all. Not one time did this officer lie on his case report about what happened at the scene. Y'all saw it. He took a bladed stance. He was in a fighting stance.
Outraged yet? These two well-respected police officers describe Amaurie Johnson's behavior using the exact same language that Matthew put in his police report: bladed stance and balled fists. So why are we going to trial? We are going to trial simply because an ignorant mob screamed loud enough about a justified use of force, and weak leaders like District Attorney Summer Stephan bowed to the mob's demands. Since the DA couldn't go after Matthew for use of force, they pathetically tried to say that what Matthew wrote in his report never happened, even though other officers corroborate that it did happen. This politically motivated witch hunt has cost Matthew Dages over $80,000 in out-of-pocket legal fees that are not covered by his union. Not to mention the mental turmoil this has caused for this police officer and his entire family. Trial starts in less than 2 weeks. And if you'd like to help this officer clear his name and keep his freedom, Read the caption below for ways you can support. Thank you so much.
So you have to ask yourself why. Why is a DA like Summer Stephan participating in this perverted form of justice where she's going after a police officer for doing his job? Is it to appease a feeble-minded group of absolute morons who hear one thing from the media and then they go insane and they start throwing bricks and burning down cities and attacking police officers because they perceive that there's some sort of racial injustice simply because a white police officer had to deal with a black suspect? That's what we're doing. Instead of mobilizing your police force and mobilizing the National Guard, if you need to handle rioters and looters in your city, you're going to prosecute a good man, a good police officer who does good in his community, who upholds the Constitution, who protects and serves, and you're going to attend. So the maximum sentence, I believe, for falsifying a police report is like 3 years. What absolute garbage! And not only that, but the means by which they or the foundation for this charge of falsifying a police report. You heard Christina say that he was cleared in the use of force. The use of force turned out to be justified, and I'll play a clip for you here in just a second that will sort of illustrate that. But normally in a case like this, they would use an outside agency to investigate use of force or any alleged misconduct. If there's an internal investigation being done, they'll hand it over to a nearby outside agency. But what they did in this case was hire a private investigative firm, paid them, I think, something like $75,000 so that they could they could essentially manufacture the misconduct that they were looking for in the form of falsifying a police report. It's shady, it's suspicious, it's corrupt. Summer Stephan needs to resign. She needs to be disbarred. If you're a DA that participates in the bullshit like this, then you should not hold office. You should not be a district attorney. You should resign. You should be disbarred. You should not be practicing law. Prosecutors are supposed to prosecute the law without passion, prejudice, discrimination, anything like that. They're not supposed to have any interest in the cases that they prosecute. Yet here she is, again, acquiescing to the simpletons who went about her city destroying private and public property, and instead of prosecuting those morons, she's going after a police officer. So let's take a look at this.
Reasonable, the lieutenant answered, the level of force was both reasonable and necessary based on Mr. Johnson's resistance and his actions. Dages also agreed to take a polygraph and answered these two questions. Did you have any racial bias when detaining and arresting Johnson? Did you lie on your police report regarding the detention and arrest of Johnson? Dages answered no to both, and according to the examiner, he answered truthfully.
So when asked if there was any racial bias in his contact with Amaurie Johnson, he answered no. And when asked if he lied in his police report, he answered no. And according to the polygraph examiner, he answered truthfully to those two questions. And you saw the quote from his lieutenant saying that the use of force was justified. So what are we doing? Well, again, Summer Stephan, the DA in San Diego County, has sold her soul to the woke mob and, again, hired a private investigative firm to manufacture evidence or indicators of misconduct in the form of falsifying a police report. So they were denied their motion to dismiss. They are going to court on the 29th of this month, and we need to pack that courtroom full of supporters for Officer Dages. So I will leave some links in the description section of this video. Visit those links to figure out how you can help and support Officer Dages and his family in this hellish nightmare that they're going through right now. And let me know what you think in the comments. Give me your input, give me your info, but visit those links so you can figure out how to help the Dages family.